Okay, let us continue on the discussion which we have started a couple of days back, basically understanding the licensing. So we know most of these components, what SAP is offering part of the license. Now you need to understand the significance and importance of these components, what they offered in Enterprise Edition. So when do we use this? Say you consider a situation where you want to use HANA as a data mart or you want to use HANA as a warehousing solution. In such situations, so basically you need to have some ETL tools. ETL tools which are capable of extracting the data from different source systems and if required doing some transformations and then loading the data into this HANA database. So you call them as ETL tools or we can also call them as replication technologies. So what SAP has done is not only just giving database, they also provided ETL tools for the customers or the replication technologies using which they can extract the data from different source systems and load the data into HANA database. So those ETL tools are these. One is SAP Data Services. It's one of the ETL tool which can be used for replicating the data into HANA database. You see this diagram, will understand that like this. You can observe that on the left side we have different source systems. On the right side you have HANA database and this is your data services. So data services is one of the most popular, widely used ETL tool. Very popular ETL tool. So using it's generalized ETL tool. I mean, meaning of that is we can use this data services BODS, business objects data services, the old version naming. Now from 4.2 onwards we call it SAP data services. So it's a very popular one to load the data from any source to any target. So it need not be only for loading the data into HANA from any source system to any target. So the reason why it's so popular is a lot of advantages we have with this ETL tool. Okay, now here comes a point. Generally, now the doubt comes is why do we need so many ETL tools? Why do we need so many ETL tools and why SAP is offering so many ETL tools or replication technologies? One is not sufficient. The answer is no. We can't rely on one ETL tool. Reason is, you know, the requirements will be drastically varying. Every ETL tool or replication technology is having some limitations. No doubt there will be a lot of advantages, but at the same time, there will be some limitations. So we have to use those ETL tools within those limitations only. So when you say obviously there is some limitation for an ETL tool, we cannot rely on one single ETL tool. It's practically impossible. So that's why SAP has given multiple options to you. So if you consider data services as an ETL tool, a lot of advantages you have. One of the major advantages, the source systems you can deal with. Almost you can connect to any type of source system. Broad connectivity features we have. Broad connectivity features. When I say, when you want to extract the data from any source system, first and foremost thing they need to do is they should be able to connect to that. And in the companies, the source system will drastically vary. We don't come across the same source systems in every company. So source systems drastically varies from company to company. That's why this is one of the best ideally suitable ETL tool. So particularly to deal with the different type of source systems we come across. So you name it, you have that facility there. You can connect to file systems. Files also, we can handle different types of files like Excel files, CSV files, text files, Hadoop files. All this we can deal with. You can connect to the databases like Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, almost every database. You can connect to SAP applications, any SAP application like ERP, CRM, SEM, BW, non-SAP applications like Siebel, Arc Labs, JD Edwards, all this. Even we can connect to the web services. So all kind of facilities we have in data services. That's why it became one of the most popular ETL tool. But we can say that's one of the major advantage with the data services. But apart from that, it's not just about that. There are other features also available. Like, when we use the term ETL, it's not just extracting the data. You need to perform some transformations. Transformation means what? Conversion of the data. So that conversion of the data as per analysis requirements you need to do. So when you want to perform that conversions, depending on the data, depending on the company requirements, those conversions may be very simple sometimes or maybe very complex. Generally simple conversions when you want to perform, they'll give a lot of facilities for you in any ETL tool. But there comes a problem when it comes to complex conversions. Usually most of the ETL tools, if you have to perform complex conversions, they'll ask you to write programming code. But that also they have simplified here. A lot of graphical facilities they have provided using which we can perform complex conversions very easily. So that's another benefit you have with the data services. And another thing is, in data services, not only performing data integration, you can also perform data quality management. So before loading the data into your warehousing database, we can also perform data quality checks, which is not required in most of the cases, but sometimes when you want to perform, you have that facility available. In fact, even before SAP has acquired these business objects, these products are not SAP's product. These data services, the business object reporting, SAP has acquired that company business objects. Even before SAP has acquired this, they used to have two different technologies actually. One, they used to call it as BODI, Business Objects Data Integrator. Another one is BODQ, Business Objects Data Quality. Actually, combining both of them, so they've introduced it as data services. So in simple way, we can say BODS is a combination of DI and DQ. Okay. So data quality management, when we are saying, generally when we replicate the data from OLTP applications like CRM, ERP, these kind of applications, we don't need to perform data quality check mostly. The reason is, whatever the data you have in your OLTP applications is already verified data. It's already quality data because you know how data comes into your ERP system or CRM systems. When end user performs transactions using graphical screens. Whenever he enters the data into the graphical screens, first all the checks will be performed, without which data will not be stored in the database. So generally that kind of data we don't need to check for quality. But when the data comes from some file systems and all that, definitely you have to do it. So if that situation demands, there is a facility for you to check for the data qualities and all that. So that's a specialty we have in data services. So because of all these advantages we have, that became one of the most popular and widely used ETL tool, and they're also using it for loading the data into HANA database. And almost most of the landscapes you find these data services as ETL tool. Most of the landscapes, particularly when they want to replicate the data from non-SAP sources, they ideally prefer this one. Anyhow, in the coming session, I'm going to explain you about landscapes. I'll show you one of the company landscape. So there you can understand which situations I've used it. But there is a limitation actually. Data services, no doubt it's a popular ETL tool, but data services is used mainly for scheduled data loads. Data services is used for scheduled data loads. You know what do you mean by scheduling? There will be jobs, batch jobs, they'll schedule them for loading the data. So like say every day evening 6 o'clock you want to load the data, or every day afternoon you want to load the data, like that. They can schedule those batch jobs. But the problem with that is, suppose I'm scheduling data load every day evening at 6 o'clock. Suppose today afternoon 2 o'clock, if I'm doing analysis of my data in warehousing system, the data what I'm analyzing is yesterday's evening data. Means my analysis is not real time. So that's what the problem you'll be facing with that. So when the customer want to perform that real-time data analysis, they want to have the data load also real-time. So meaning of that real-time data load says, as and when some transaction takes place in the source system, like in your ERP system, CRM systems, whenever a transaction takes place, without any time delay, the data should be loaded into warehousing database so that the analysis you are doing becomes a real-time analysis, which almost all the customers will look for. But this is not a preferable technology for real-time replications at all. This can be highly preferred for scheduled replications, but not for real-time replications. This is one of the biggest limitation we can say as far as data services is concerned. That's why I told you we should use all these technologies within the limitations only. You can't think about doing everything using them. Okay. Now, in those situations, say my requirement is I want to replicate the data from my ERP system or from my CRM system in real time, means without any time delay, as and when transaction takes place. So then what to do? So to handle those situations only, SAP has given some other replication technologies also. This SLT, SAP Landscape Transformation, SLT is one of the popular real-time replication technology. In fact, this SLT can be used both for scheduled as well as real-time replications. SLT can be used both for scheduled as well as real-time replications. But generally we'll have a doubt, okay, when we are saying you can do both scheduled as well as real-time replication. Why can't we use only SLT? We cannot because again here also we have limitations that I'll tell you. Okay, so this is one of the most important replication technology as well as real-time replications are concerned. Very effective. So a lot of advantages you have: simplified installation, simplified configurations, and for the developers or modeling people also, they can replicate the tables very easily just by clicking on a button. So with a simple button click, they will be able to replicate the data. So all that is simplified, pretty easy to implement. But The biggest drawback we have here is even though it's very effective for real-time replications and all, the biggest limitation is when it comes to the source system supported. So this SLT replication supports replicating the data only from SAP sources, ABAP-based SAP applications we can call them as. So ABAP-based SAP applications like ERP, CRM, SEM and all this. And when it comes to non-SAP, it's very limited. You can replicate data only from databases. So it supports SAP source systems and non-SAP only databases like Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, those kind of databases. So that's one of the biggest limitation. No other source system is supported there. Because of that replication mechanism they follow, it doesn't support other source systems. Okay, so that's why you have to use that within that limitation zone. And another thing is, as it is, you want to replicate the data, it's pretty good. But if you want to do some transformations, means conversions of the data, SLT biggest problem is you need to perform these conversions by writing programming code. And that too, you need to write ABAP programming for that. So you have to write ABAP programming code and perform that conversions. And definitely it's more complicated. Rather than complicated, it's going to be more expensive for the customer. So that's why generally when you want to replicate data from SAP sources so without any conversions and all, we ideally prefer this SLT. But real time is pretty good. It's really good as far as real-time replication is concerned. So those are the advantages and limitations we have with SLT. That's why, see, customers won't rely on one single ETL tool. They can opt for combinations. One situation that, one situation this, combinations of these replication technologies they can use. So fact is this enterprise edition, if you go with along with the platform edition components, they are providing these two ETL tools for you. But there is also another replication technology available which is not listed in any of these licensings. Whenever you look at the licensing, these are not shown, but I'm just explaining that. Remember, there is one replication technology called DXE, Direct Extractor Connection. There is also a replication technology, but it's not part of the licensing. It's not part of any licensing. Why? Because the reason is this can be used for replications of the data, but remember it's limited only for replicating the data from SAP source systems. Only SAP source systems, nothing else it supports. Only SAP source systems like ERP, CRM, SEM, these kind of source systems. It's very, very limited. But why there is no licensing required for this is there is a reason. You don't need software for this. No need of installing any software as such. So when you don't need any software, why do you need license? No software components. So these are simple configuration settings will be there, and there is a direct connectivity established between your SAP source system and HANA database, a direct connection, and a few simple configuration settings are performed in source system and few simple configuration settings in HANA database. And using some built-in extractor mechanism, actually these extractors are used for loading the data into BW. The same extractor mechanism will be able to load the data into HANA. All that built-in functionality you can use. Okay, so that's a specialty we have in DXE. So no cost involved there, no additional cost, and hardly matter of, maximum. Even if you have to do a lot of activities, maximum 15-20 minutes you can do this configuration. And using all the built-in extractor mechanism facilities, you'll be able to replicate the data into HANA. But the limitation is, it's only for SAP source systems, and that too only scheduled data loads you can perform by using DXE. So in fact it was not there at the beginning. They've introduced only from SPS 04 and they started using more of it from SPS 05. Okay, so that's also a technology, but just remember it's not part of licensing. Okay, so that's one more. Another one is there's one more replication technology called SRS. Sybase Replication Server. Sybase Replication Server is another replication technology. So this is also one of the replication technology which customers can use if they are interested in. Actually, SAP used to provide this as part of the licensing earlier, initially, but later on they stopped it. I'll tell you the reason. Actually, till SPS 04, only till SPS 04, we used to have one more edition of HANA. Not only these two editions, Platform Edition and Enterprise Edition, we used to have one more called Enterprise Extended Edition. As the name itself is suggesting, it's an extension of the Enterprise Edition, Enterprise Extended Edition. In that Enterprise Extended Edition, they used to provide this Sybase Replication Server. This one they used to provide. It's actually a Sybase product. So most of you might be knowing that Sybase is part of SAP now. SAP has acquired Sybase company. Even though it's part of SAP, it's an individual entity, a separate entity. So Sybase products will be there and their licensing will be there separately. What they tried is they tried giving that Sybase product licensing part of SAP HANA licensing. They had some licensing issues and conflicts there. That's why from SPS 5 onwards they stopped giving that Enterprise Extended Edition. So there are two editions SAP is offering from SPS 5 onwards, only Platform and Enterprise. But suppose from that SPS 5 onwards, if any customer is interested in going with Sybase Replication Server, still they can implement. It's not that they cannot implement Sybase Replication Server. They can implement Sybase Replication Server, but what they have to do is they need to buy the license separately. As a Sybase product, you need to buy the license for that Sybase Replication Server, and a couple of components they'll give: one replication server, one replication agent. Server will be deploying in HANA database and agent on the source, and using some SQL scripts you'll be able to load the data. So this is not so popular, but still one of the very few replication technologies which supports real-time replications. So this is another replication technology which supports real-time replications along with SLT. But it's very limited. So Sybase replication server we can use for replicating the data only from databases like Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, only from the databases. That's one of the biggest limitation, and we can't perform any transformations, no conversions possible here. Okay, so those are the advantages and limitations we have with Sybase replication server. So now you can understand the reason why this DXE and SRS are not shown part of your licensing. Even if you go to SAP official website also, you won't find them. Okay. But later on, SAP want to come up with some specialized replication technologies. That's what they've introduced. From SPS 9 onwards, they've introduced something called SDI, Smart Data Integration. What this Smart Data Integration does is it will play a role of your data services, almost. See here, you have data services which is capable of connecting to the source, extracting the data, doing some transformations and loading the data into HANA. Now that SDI is just an extension of HANA here. And HANA itself, we can extend the functionality of that. And that itself will act as that ETL tool. Means within HANA, we can embed that ETL functionality using SDI. Okay. Here. So that will directly connect to the different sources, extract the data, and transformations also we can perform and load the data into HANA. So not only that smart data integration, even that smart data quality. As I told you, data services is a combination of DI and DQ. Similarly, here they also provided smart data quality. So data quality management also we can perform. So combining these two, SDI and SDQ, they call it as EIM, Enterprise Information Management. Okay, so this is also an option you have, but it's just in the early stages. This SDI and SDQ developed and provided by SAP, which can be embedded into HANA, can be used to connect to different sources and replicate the data into HANA database. Only for HANA database they're using. So they're only in the budding stages, the early stages of the technology. So some features and functionalities limitations we can experience definitely. So we cannot completely rely on these two to replicate the data from different sources into HANA database. But that's also an option we have. That's something they came up with in SPS 9 and above versions. And then we have something called SDS, Smart Data Streaming. So this is something different, an exclusive technology component or software component we can say. See, in general, whatever we discussed till now, when we are speaking about replicating the data, you replicate the data from ERP systems, BW systems, or any other source systems like file system, databases, and all that. But in case you are speaking about capturing the live data, you want to capture live information. Now, how do you do it? So when I say live information, I'll give a small example. Suppose, uh, you know, you might have seen F1 races, right? Formula 1 races. So when you watch that Formula 1 race, generally, there is a driver who is driving that car. Basically, that you call it as a machine. Car is a machine there. So you see a team is working. At the back end, there is a team working. They're monitoring something and doing some monitoring, doing some analysis. They keep on giving some instructions to the drivers if you observe when the race is going on. So what is that they're monitoring? What is that they're doing there and giving some instructions to the driver? So basically what they do is that machine is generating a lot of data, that car is generating a lot of data, which they're capturing live and analyzing that information. Based on that, they're giving some instructions to the driver. So when you should have a pit stop, those kind of instructions they'll give. What is the performance of that car? Okay, it's a wear and tear on the tires you have. So when you have to go and change that, all these instructions they give. That is possible only when they capture that live information. How is it possible? You can't rely on these normal ETL tools. You need some specialized technologies. You might have heard about something called smart meters, right? Smart meters means generally, electricity meters. If you see, these are all general digital meters. But now the future is that the smart meter concept is there, but still had to be implemented in many of the places. The smart meters are designed in such a way it will capture that live information. Like, suppose you set up a smart meter in your house, so it can give you not just energy consumption information. It will give you how many the devices we have, each device, how much consumption of the power it's taking. Suppose there is some device which is very old. If it's consuming more energy, that also it will tell you. Suppose your fridge is there, which is very old, 10 years old. Because of the problem with the compressor, you have more energy consumption happening there. That information also it can give you. So that kind of information, if you want to capture and you want to hold it and analyze it, you need some specialized technologies. That's when these kind of technologies will be helpful for you. That's called smart data streaming. The smart data streaming is the one which can be used for capturing the live data, the live information, and which can be further analyzed and by using that HANA database. Ultimately, once we get the data into HANA, we can analyze the data. So like this, they're giving different ETL tools or replication technologies using which we can get the data from different source systems and load the data into HANA. But the point is that this decision of choosing the right ETL tool is in the hands of solution architects. Solution architects will be the one who will be responsible for identifying which is a suitable ETL tool. So generally what solution architect will do is he'll check out whatever I told you, like advantages and disadvantages of each and every ETL tool, and ultimately decision is from the customer. So on what basis they decide which is a suitable ETL tool? Primarily, there are four factors which will affect choosing your right ETL tool. Those four factors will be like this. First is type of source systems. What type of source system is yours? Second one is format of the data. What is the format of the data to deal with? The third one is conversion requirements. And the fourth one is scheduling requirements. So primarily based on these four factors, they decide which are the suitable ETL tools. Which is good, which is bad, what limitations you have, all that. So once they decide on, so they want to go with this couple of ETL tools, they start implementing them, using which they replicate the data into HANA database. Okay, so this is all what SAP will provide you part of the licensing. So definitely there will be a cost difference. Say example like platform edition licensing is costing you $120,000. Enterprise edition is costing you somewhere about $160,000. That cost differences will be there. Okay, one thing if you observe part of this licensing, SAP is giving you HANA database, a lot of other components they're providing. Along with that, they're providing ETL tools for you. So you can set up the database, you can extract the data and store the data here. But ultimately, when end user want to perform analysis of this data, we need to present the data in the form of reports. So the final presentation of the data will be in the form of reports. Then only end user will be able to understand the data. If you present that in formatted way, he can analyze it and take a decision there. But one thing if you observe, part of this licensing, SAP is not offering or providing any of the reporting tools. You can clearly see that. Not even one single reporting tool. So SAP doesn't want to do that. SAP doesn't want to provide reporting tools part of this HANA licensing. Think practically. Suppose you are an end user, an employee in the company. Think as an end user. As an end user, are you worried how data is stored? As an end user, are you worried how data is loaded? Simple answer is no. No end user is worried about how data is maintained, how data is stored, how data is loaded. Doesn't matter for him. See, what matters to the end user is always how the data is presented to him. Whether the data we are presenting is as per his interest or not, as per his format requirements or not. That's where you need to offer the flexibility. The flexibility you need to offer is mainly when it comes to presenting the data to the end users. And you know that analysis requirement drastically varies from company to company. You can say drastically varies. You take an example of sales report in one company, sales report in another company, sales report only, but there will be a huge variation. And moreover, you see many of the customers are already used to some specific reporting. You take an example, in most of the companies you see finance department people. Most of the finance department people, they are used to MS Excel. So if they are using that MS Excel for years, maybe first last 10 years, 15 years, they're using Excel. Now you go to them saying that I'm giving a very good, beautiful reporting tool called Web Intelligence Reporting. They may not be interested in that. So what they'll ask you is, doesn't matter whatever you do, finally give me everything in Excel format only, because I'm used to it. So that's the reason why SAP is not providing any specific reporting tool. So actually that they did when they've introduced BW. No, when SAP came up with the BW as a warehousing solution, they given all. It can be used as data mart, you can use it as ETL. Even there is a default reporting also in BW, that BEX reporting. But if you ask anyone who is using BW, what is the biggest drawback? You know, right from the day one, everyone knows that. If they ask them what is the drawback in BW. The main drawback is that BEX reporting itself is the biggest drawback. People are not happy with that reporting. In fact, at that time, when people used to implement BW as warehousing solution, as they are not interested in using BEX reporting, actually they started using BO reporting on top of BW. So once SAP has realized that, they're lagging in reporting area, so that's when they have acquired the business objects. So anyhow, SAP doesn't want to repeat that same mistake. That's why what SAP has done is, part of the HANA licensing, they are not providing any reporting tools to you, and the option is left to the customer. As a customer, based on your analysis requirements, you decide which reporting tool you want to use. There's no restriction. You are a customer, you decide. You know your analysis requirements. Whichever reporting tool you want to use on top of HANA, you can use it. If you want to use MS Excel as reporting, use that. You want to use Tableau as a reporting, use it. You want to use Cagnos, any other non-SAP reporting tools. Or you are interested in SAP reporting tools, like you want to go with SAP Business Objects reporting, like Web Intelligence, dashboards, Crystal Reports, Analysis Office, Explorer, Lumira, Design Studio, any kind of SAP Business Objects reporting tools also we can use on top of HANA. There's a flexibility what SAP has offered to the customers. So that's the reason why you won't find any reporting part of this HANA licensing. Okay. So this is what basically, as far as licensing is concerned, what software components you find. There are small things. You have one more called data warehousing foundation they given to synchronize the data of your on-premise applications to the cloud. They given something called remote data synchronization. So those kind of small components also will be available part of that license. Okay, I'll just show you that where this. We'll just go to SWDC and let us see what they are giving in the platform edition and enterprise edition. And I'm going to show you that SAP website.